Today, we continue the conversation with the first Indigenous female to represent Australia in volleyball at the Olympic Games. Taliqua Clancy was raised in Kingaroy, Queensland, which is over 200 kilometers from any beach. And yet she was recruited at age 15 and traveled away from her family to train full-time as a beach volleyball player and pursue her dreams. This is when she met Nat and myself during her training and forged a mentoring relationship with Nat that continues to this day. Look how far you've come, T, in those 12 years. I won't tell some of those stories that I remember of you being in the Sandstorm office. I won't tell those in your intro, don't worry. Her dream to be an Olympic gold medalist and world champion have been put on hold while the Tokyo 2020 Games have been delayed due to COVID's worldwide impact. It really is hard to fathom what it would be like to have your dreams stunted like that. But a silver lining just might be Taliqua's chance to increase the impact she can make on behalf of her people. During this extra time, perhaps more people can learn to understand and respect what it is to be part of the oldest civilization on Earth, Aboriginal Australians. So you ready to open this up, T?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, when Nat shared that you were going to be an iconic Australian on the coin for your country, representing your people, like, I was really moved by that. But what does it feel like when it's you? What does that even feel like?
Honestly, it's really crazy for me because I still feel like I'm still so early and in the beginning stages of my career. So it is, I feel like that's a moment in 10 more years where I'll have this real understanding of how special it is to be an Indigenous athlete on that coin and representing my people. But for sure, I'm extremely proud still, for sure. But yeah,
Does
I
your
feel
family...
like I need a bit of time.
Yeah, and I get that, and I agree with you. It's all in retrospect when we look back. But is there anyone in your family who's really pumped about it, who thinks it's special?
My family is definitely the one where they will tell everybody else how proud they are and happy they are, but not as so much to my face. But I know they're extremely proud of me. And for me, I get to share it with them. You know, I wouldn't be in this position without them. Like, they've given me this incredible opportunity, and it's awesome that I can share this with them.
And I want to talk about in a minute that you went to the Australian Mint when you were young, because I think that's an incredible story. But first, you mentioned your family, and I will say that I was instantly struck with how close your family is to you and how integrated they are in your sport life. And so is that a cultural thing? Because I remember thinking, I don't think my family was this involved in my career as Taliqua's is. So is that sort of a cultural thing?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like we're that involved in everyone's life. I do believe too, because my mum was 17 when she had me. I call my grandparents mum and dad, so I'm extremely lucky and fortunate in that way. I do feel that my mum's two sisters too, because she's one of three, that they both, had that connection, even though they're my auntie, it's as that I am their daughter, because, I was the first grandchild for 26 years. I was the only grandchild. So I believe I was kind of the baby for a really long time. And yeah, but they definitely set me up on this journey, no doubt. They never really said no to much of my opportunities to go and compete, unless financially we weren't able to make those trips and opportunities that were given to me. But again, I'm still so blessed that they found a way every time to give me the opportunity to follow my dreams.
And do you know how they found a way? Because Nat and I were chatting about this interview before, and we were actually saying that we're like, did T ever feel like she had restrictions because of how much a trip costs? Like, how did they do it?
Honestly, I knew that we were definitely not the most rich, but I never felt like I went without. So when I was told that unfortunately we won't be able to do soccer, it's such an expensive sport, I remember mum just telling me we can't do soccer anymore, it's too expensive. And I was like, okay, yep, I get it. There was never that, I was never hurt by that in such a way. I was like, okay, I get it, I understand. But honestly, I don't even know how they did it. They just worked hard. My mum is one of the hardest workers ever. Yeah, her mentality, she is a workaholic for sure.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so I am curious about this excursion trip. So you go, so you take a bus or something, or you fly to Canberra to visit the Royal Australian Mint. Is that what happened?
Yeah, but honestly, this was the first email I ever opened, and I knew exactly what it was. I've never been so excited by an email. It all was like started in like our grade 7 camp. We all got on a bus from Kingaroy down to Canberra, and the Mint was just one of the stops.
Okay.
And so instantly when I read it, I was like, oh my God, this is such an incredible opportunity. Like I couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was literally like a grade 7 camp. My mum came as one of the parent guardians. I couldn't like, so crazy that that would even like come full circle.
And so when you're on this trip and you're, I don't know if it's like a factory, I've not been there, but did you ever have dreams of who are these people on these coins anyway, and that you could be one of them?
Honestly, I don't even remember at that stage of having people like a part of the coins and stuff. I just remember like, whoa, this is when they make money. So it's like,
Yeah,
this is so
exactly.
cool. And I remember taking home, you get to like you put a bit of money in, you spin the dial, and you get to take home your $2 piece. Like you make your own coin. So yeah,
Oh,
that's like my memory of the place.
yeah, I think I totally get it. It's funny how we want to ask you these questions like as if you had some poignant moment being there as a kid and all you really remember is the coin that you brought back. But I guess what it does ask me with you is, do you remember back then what you dreamed about being one day when you grew up?
Oh, 100%. I've always wanted to be an athlete. Like, I don't even know how I knew it, but I just like knew that was my destiny, like straight away. And then watching the 2000 Olympics, I was like, okay, I'm going to be an Olympian. Like, it was just, and it's crazy because like it's so hard when I speak to other people because, that's not the case for everybody. But I've always known where I was going. Like, there's just never been a doubt.
Yeah, right. And so when you're watching the 2000 Olympics, was it, I want to go there for anything? Like you would be a gymnast, or did you have your sights on particular sport?
Actually, I've never had a sight on a particular sport, to be honest. I would try anything. That's the thing at that stage of my career. So there was really not much that like, even though Cathy Freeman was the driving force of me wanting to go to the Olympics, like I wasn't because I wanted to be a runner. I just, yeah, it's crazy. I definitely would never thought it was for beach volleyball, that's for sure. I didn't even know beach volleyball existed. Sorry, Nat.
Had you
So
been to the
sorry.
beach when you were growing up? Because you live far away from the beach.
Yeah, we had a few holidays at the Sunshine Coast. So I love the beach. Maybe not so much the sand as much as I did then. But yeah.
Okay, so tell me about Cathy Freeman and you're watching the games. What was the impact? Like, what were you seeing in her that had you want to go and do, maybe not be a runner, but be at the games?
I think it's just seeing another one of your people on the screen, like there was no other sports where you'd see female Aboriginal athletes. Like I can't even think of one outside of Cathy until that moment. Like you saw obviously all the great rugby players and they're again great like idols as well, but to have a really strong female, like that was a total game changer.
Yeah, great point that you're making about a female in particular. And to then realize that you've got this stance as the first female volleyball player, Indigenous volleyball player, like, are you connecting these dots at all that you went and basically are now, standing on the shoulders of what Cathy Freeman created for you in 2000?
Honestly, when you said that, I didn't really think about it that much. Not like that. I didn't realize
I
like
get it.
how privileged that is. Again, like I said, like it's still like an odd feeling because I still feel like I'm in the beginning. So it was more an honor when people say that I'm a part of like the 52 Aboriginal athletes who've competed at the Olympics. I'm like, wow, I get to stand alongside all these amazing athletes. Like that is a massive privilege for me.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think there hasn't been another one yet? Why do you think you're first?
Um, oh, there's definitely not enough diversity going around in sport. I still don't believe there is a great pathway and cultural understanding to help other Aboriginal kids, to really push to that high level in sport. I don't they
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's there, especially, we aren't just good at footy and and good at netball. Like we're amazing athletes and I fell in love with the sport of beach volleyball. I know there's definitely other sports where we can completely tear it up. In my words,
Yeah.
there's the opportunity there for sure.
So just because I've known a little bit through Nat, a little bit more about your career, you've trained in very predominantly white Australian environments most of your career, like most of these 12 years, or since you were 16. So what has it been like for you as you get older, realizing, when you connect to fellow Black friends and family members, like what are you kind of picking up about the differences in that white environment versus some of the comfort level you feel with your Black friends?
Oh, it's completely different. I don't think I really realized now until later, I'm 28 now. So, I haven't really realized that was a massive part that I was missing. I always was a proud Aboriginal woman, but I feel like my parents raised us in a very smart way of being able to I don't know, what word would you say, to really interact and jump in and out of being Aboriginal to white, which might sound weird for some people, but that literally is
To learn how to
yeah,
integrate, or maybe
totally integration, totally, because I don't think I would be where I'm at without having that capability. And I do feel like that is it's lost a lot in that cultural awareness, because some people, they need that bit more support and guidance. I was a very quiet, shy athlete, and it took me not until probably 18 to really start finding my voice, and that's how I found my voice. But I definitely felt the disconnect of people understanding myself, because they don't really see me in that Aboriginal mindset and space. So I've had a lot of disconnect when I've had to try to explain, not just for myself, but also other Black athletes, that no, this is how we need to be treated, this is how we operate at our best. And then I can see my white athletes around me going no, that's not it. And I'm like, okay.
you just used to think it was something about you. Did you kind of think, oh, maybe I need to shift and change and kind of fit into a mold? And was that what you were trying to do initially before you found your voice?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. For sure. It's hard to describe, definitely, but it is completely different when I'm around my mates, my Aboriginal friends and my best friends, to when I have to go into a white space. I couldn't be the same person, and people to understand me. And also I feel like they find that power that comes with my Aboriginal culture, it overwhelms them, honestly. It really overwhelms them.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So I just had this thought. I want to clear up some terminology, because I think, we're saying things like your Black friends, your Aboriginal friends, your Indigenous. We haven't even said this yet, but First Nations. What do you relate to? And I know it's kind of shifting and changing a little, but give us some respect lingo.
Respect.
What would be respectful?
I would say First Nations is definitely respectful. And I feel like Aboriginal is probably the most respectful way to start when you're entering the community. I definitely feel like that's a really great place to start if you're unsure. Yeah, cool. Definitely.
I know, and you're thinking duh. And I'm asking you because I know from having a Black background, there's a lot of discomfort around what to say, and sometimes that just stops the conversation. And I hope this is about having more conversations. So thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot. So when you became the first Australian Aboriginal woman to play volleyball at the Olympics, it was in 2016. So it was the Rio Olympics. And you're famous for having little Aboriginal flags on your fingernails. So what did that mean to you, wearing your flag in that way?
Yeah, it was important. It was honestly, there was no way that I wasn't going to be wearing the Aboriginal colors on my fingernails. It's important, it's exactly like what Cathy did. You got to I'm proud, and yeah, I'm Australian, but I'm Aboriginal, I'm First Nations, that is something that needs to be put out there. And, you know, I'm only one of 13 females of the Olympians. So there's 52 Aboriginal athletes and there's only 13 female within that group. So
okay, I have goosebumps. What?
yeah, which is insane. It's insane. So
Taliqua, that's insane.
I know.
Like ever.
I know. Like ever.
And your people have been around for 75,000 years. So hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. That 52 wasn't great. And now we're at 13 for women.
Yeah.
No wonder you were only seeing Cathy in the 2000 Olympics. Oh, holy cow. And look, this might lead into this question too a little bit, but can you give me the 101 on reconciliation? So I'm Canadian. Many of our listeners are not Australian, right? So, and sadly, those who are Australian will probably need some of this 101 description. What does the movement mean to you, the reconciliation movement?
I think the first thing for me with reconciliation is making sure that our culture is still alive and sharing it with all the Australian community. Like that's really what the like leading force of Reconciliation Week is. Mm-hmm. And then for myself, I feel like if we're going to take a really great step in reconciliation, it is, and I don't think many people know this, that when Captain Cook came to Australia on his boat and he declared Australia as terra nullius, which means there was no First Nations or anybody who was inhabited the island. So it was literally a blank canvas. There was nobody here. And like for me, I feel like that is something that needs to take a massive step. We're the only country who hasn't done that too, which is absolutely insane.
But to acknowledge that was
the First Nations, yeah, First Nations people. Australia is the only country in the world who has never done that.
Not acknowledge that in that moment he he erased your existence in that proclamation.
Yeah, it's in the books that it's terra nullius, and we're literally the only country in the world who has never acknowledged First Nations people.
Oof, that's intense.
Yeah.
And is that what reconciliation means? Like keeping your culture alive instead of almost like trying to disappear your culture the way Captain Cook did?
I think it's more like a learning, you know, there's a lot like, you know, even throughout the stolen generation, you know, there's a lot of Aboriginal people who are still learning about their culture and didn't know and had to go on that journey. Like Adam Goodes was definitely one of them. Carl Vanderkamp, he spoke recently about his journey in that too. He was adopted. Mm-hmm. So it's about like, making sure that it doesn't die, because it is still out there. We've lost so many language groups, and the ones that are still alive, it's about, you know, sharing them with everyone so they don't die.
I love that. So can you help me a little bit? Because, you know, so this is for Australians know, when you have a gathering and there's, especially if it's somebody from the government, you get this kind of like introduction and in reverence of, you know, the owners of the land. Yes, the custodians. Tell me why that's so meaningful, because I think that it's so much more powerful than we realize. What does that mean when we do that?
Yeah, I feel like, again, it's that step. It's a tiny step, it's a baby step to, like, you know, acknowledging our people, well, my people. And yeah, I think it is extremely important, you know, and I feel like, you know, it shouldn't just be the Aboriginal people making those welcome to country. It should also be white Australians. It should be like everybody, you know, like it's important. It's a great step forward, but yeah, I still feel like there's a lot of ways to go. And even when you are, you know, if you're honored to even do a welcome to country, it's really like, you know, taking the time to get that cultural awareness as well, to understand how important that is. Because when I get asked to do it, I'm so proud, but then also I want to make sure that I'm doing my ancestors proud as well. So I get like so nervous when I get asked to do them, because I'm like, okay, this is important. Like, you know, I want to nail this. Like, this is so important.
I like that. I love that. So bring me in a little bit in terms of ancestry, because I feel that that's the gift that you bring, and that's in this kind of way, that's what you brought to me instantly when I met you. There was this sense of, oh, it's not just Taliqua. Like, she comes with a tribe. There's like
Oh,
the
yeah.
tribes around her, right?
Yeah,
But then I know
definitely.
there's deeper tribe, right? Tell me about the ancestry that comes along with you.
I can't even describe it. It's just like what we grow up with, like you have your elders, like my grandparents are leading elders, my great uncles and like aunties and, all mob, or even in other tribes and stuff. Like I'm Woolly Woolly, that's my tribe, they're my people. And then like, my friend Beryl, like she's got another mob, So,
Yeah.
but you always respect the elders. There's always, no matter what community you're stepping into, that there's ancestors that have lived there before, and then also there's the elders that are there, so you have to respect them. So when you're stepping into somebody else's land, or even if it's just their home, like
Yeah.
that's a meeting place. So it's I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of what you have, and you just know it.
Yeah, you're like, it's almost to me like a fish in water.
Yeah.
I'm asking you about the water, and the fish is like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like they don't know it as water because it just is.
But they're great questions too, to actually be able to explain that, because they're the questions that a lot of people actually wouldn't understand. So I'm actually happy you're asking, because it's like, yeah, how do I describe this?
Yeah, and I get that you just bring it alongside you. So if you imagine yourself heading into, Tokyo 2020, that will be in 2021, and you have this like dream and this vision for winning a gold medal. So we said 13 women, Aboriginal women, have ever gone to the Olympics. And so to be a gold medalist, tell me about your ancestors. And by the way, guys, she doesn't know I was going to ask this question. So you just on the spot a little bit, but how can your ancestors and all that's before you, like you come from the oldest civilization on the planet, how do you feel that that can help lift you during one of the most important moments of your life?
I think it's just, honestly, I just think about like the struggle that they had to go through, and how lucky I am to be in the position that I am. I wouldn't be here without their sacrifices. So that gives me like, if they can go through all that struggle and hurt what they go through, like I can do this.
I love it. Thank you for saying that. Like, I know the All Blacks, I don't know if you've read the book by the All
I
Blacks,
haven't.
and they talk a lot about their history and how they use their history to really like lift them up and be so dominant and not just dominant once, like over and over again. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate what you just shared there. So I want to make sure that I ask you about Indigenous health, because I know you're really passionate about it, and I'm passionate about health, but adding the like the Indigenous twist here, why does that matter to you?
We do like have a fair line of like health risks, and I just, like we do have, in terms of lifespan, like we actually have a very short compared to the average white Australian. So I just want to make sure that we're like leaning in good positive directions. Like I feel like, as well, even health is mental health as well. So like, as much as people don't like to acknowledge, there is still a lot of trauma, and I still don't believe that we managed our mental health very well.
Mm,
And that's important too, and that starts with that physical health as well. And being an athlete, like
mm,
I I think that's like, that's a really good way for me to help share my knowledge and what I've learned.
mm.
So yeah, I work with Deadly Choices. I'm an ambassador for them. I've always loved the work they've done, so I'm so grateful that I was able to get on board this year, because they just, always doing health checks and making it fun. Like they make it really, really fun as well. And I think that's like important, because I can understand, and I see it in my families too, like that, although health risks that come, it's come through my family as well. So
Mm.
if I can help them make better decisions, or just to be a little bit more active, and to start those really great routines with their family and pass it down onto their kids, like, yeah, I love that. It's really important to me.
So I'm so glad you brought up kids, because I've seen you with kids and it's special. And what is it that if you think about health, Indigenous health and kids, where do you think you can make a real impact?
Well, they're kids, like that's the time when you need to start teaching them really good routines. As an athlete, I wish I was doing it in high school a lot better. Like I feel like, gosh, why wasn't I like having a really nice balanced diet and Oh, so much, honestly. Like even just
What
doing my
did you used to
homework,
eat? Tell me what you used to eat as a kid. Like, what were your bad
I
habits? Let them
I don't
out
want to
right
throw my
now.
mum under the bus, but I would like take a packet of chips to school, like shapes. Like I was bad. I was no good. I was like a Coke. I was like addicted to Coke, like full sugar. I didn't
Yeah.
even realize you could even get addicted to Coke, to be honest. So not until I got to Adelaide down to the national program, and they were like, "That's not good for you," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" Like,
So wow,
I
you
was
were
just
drinking
like,
that in like until you were 15, 16, heading to the program.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not laughing because I actually know that if I recall my childhood, like there was so much transition happening in my world as well. And like the things that we now know, like my mom, like
yeah.
you said, my mom didn't even know. And I would say my mom was health minded and there were things that just weren't being talked about yet. So, okay. So you had your Coca-Cola habit back then. So like, imagine if your two nieces, if they started drinking Coke all day at their young age, would you just be like devastated?
Yeah, I would actually. 100% would. Like, oh, yeah, I would. I do believe in a balance, a good balance. Like I don't want to take all the way the treats. Like, you're young too. You don't That's the best time to have it because you can't be working that off when you get older.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I hope I can instill in them some really good, strong routines, even just around the cultural stuff, to be extremely proud and to stand up for themselves. Because I don't really not until now, growing up, did I realize some things that people just shouldn't have been saying to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even like, you're, I didn't cop it so much on I would say, bad racist, but I would definitely get the like, but you're not that black. And I'm like, excuse me?
Oh, okay.
Excuse me? And I like, my nieces, you met them before, they have that fairer skin. So I don't want them to feel like not empowered by culture and to, have the voice to speak up for themselves and be like, you know what, sorry, but that's not respectful. I don't appreciate that. This is actually my heritage. This is my people. It doesn't matter my skin color. Just to have that voice to speak up and to know, you know what, like that's not right. Like to educate.
Okay, you just brought up something really, really great, I think, because I think sometimes we have this perspective of tell us about your blackness, Taliqua, but hey, if within your own community, there's like comments, there's being treated like you're not black enough, and then you quiet down. I'm so glad you brought that up because some people can't even imagine that you're under pressure in your own community to like prove yourself sometimes. And I have a friend actually whose daughter, so she has like mixed parents, and the daughter's at school and they're saying that to her, oh, you're not really Aboriginal. And she's like, the mom actually changed her schools in the end. She was just so passionate about this, but it was like devastating for that little girl because she's really proud.
Yeah.
And to be, yeah, so even inside of the race itself, like defending who you are and what you're about and your ancestry, I just think is it's complicated. It's actually not so black and white, is it?
Yeah, 100%. It is very complicated. And because now, like, from my experiences, like I said, I was always proud, but I didn't realize how, like, people were still like understanding that like racism that comes with it. And, I feel like as kids, it's trying to get out of that bad habit of making that normal. It's not a normal behavior to do. And and I've had a conversation too with another great athlete who's trying to go to softball for the Olympics, Janice Blackman, and she's a teacher out of school, and she witnessed another Aboriginal kid do this to another Aboriginal kid who just had fairer skin. So I think, yeah, it's difficult because in Australia it's such a long history. There's people only now, at like the age of 30 knowing that they're Aboriginal and trying to track back
Wow.
their family. And I was just so lucky that I was brought up and raised with it and like being proud of it. So it's hard. Yeah, I don't really know. That's a good start. Like, how do you stop people getting into that judgment and not putting pressure on like what your blackness is? Like, it's difficult, but I'm hoping that I can hopefully spread a good word, you know, like to be proud, and it's okay. You don't have to know everything about it's about being proud and just trying to, you know, learn about culture and keep it alive. It doesn't matter if you know language or not. You know, it's important that you just spread a positive word.
So on that, I want to, you know, when you say to keep culture alive, what do you want non-Aboriginal people to know, just a baseline, like what do you want them to know about your culture that would be respectful and empowering? What is it that you really want them to know about your culture?
I think it's just for them to understand the beauty of Aboriginal culture, especially when it stems around, you know, that tight family and the passing down of the stories and the dream time and the paintings, and if you're fortunate enough to know language, you know, to learn that. Like we have a beautiful culture just sitting there, and it's your First Nations people. Like I want people to learn that and to know that. But also, it doesn't mean shying away from the dark side. I feel like a lot of people do that. Like we have to embrace that side too. It's not any of us are sitting here like hating on anyone. Like we just want it to be respected and acknowledged that this is what's happened, but this is also the beauty of our culture. That is what, yeah, that's what I want people to know, and we all want to know. That's why we have Reconciliation Week.
Got it. That was great. Thank you for, I feel like I'm getting it, you know, so thank you. Do you ever feel like there's a weight of representing your people when you compete in sport? Like in an ideal world, what would you hope your image as an iconic symbol of Australia could mean for your nieces, let's say, growing up in a world that they're maturing into?
Pressure. I wouldn't say I feel pressure in terms of when I'm competing and playing volleyball. Like that's just normal, you know, that's just me doing my thing, and I love
Yes.
that. But I do feel pressure in terms of like making sure that I represent my people well on
Mm.
platforms like that. I do feel a bit of pressure.
Mm.
But also it's a nice pressure too, because you know I do want to be a great role model. I hope I can help just one Aboriginal person out there, even just, you know, to educate a bit of white Australia, and
Mm.
you know, to take a step forward in our movement for reconciliation. So yeah, I do feel pressure around that. I really hope that I can represent my people well,
Mm.
and yeah, I hope that I can, you know, pass that down to my nieces as well.
And I'm going to end on this because I feel like you've got this really cool relationship with pressure. You know, I've heard you talk about, I've seen you compete, I've seen you under pressure, and it's like, what is it that you say to yourself when you're under pressure that has you say, because you just said it just then, oh, I like it. So
Yeah.
what is that? Have you always had that? Or did somebody teach you about that?
I think I've always liked it. I've always loved like the high performance sport. But yeah, it's hard to break that barrier of like, you know, that nervousness where it can like stiff you up for sure. But I've always loved it. I've always chased that feeling. I've never been scared of that feeling. But, you know, as you get into senior athlete, I'm like, no, this is my time. I'm like, this is the moment. This is the moment that you've been waiting and wanting. Like, we step into that. So
So you
yeah,
literally
I love
step
it.
into it. You literally just said, I chase that feeling. Like legitimately you chase it?
Yeah, for sure. Especially at like world champs. And, you know, if you want to achieve those goals, like, I think, like, you know, it's like, no, this is that feeling that I'm feeling right now. I'm like, this is what you want. Like, this is where you want to be. Like,
It's really
yeah,
cool. And
that's good.
it is, yeah, thank you for how you described that, because I sense that when I was watching Cathy Freeman's video, her
Totally.
documentary, when she talked about like, yeah, just stepping right into it. And it's not saying there isn't pressure, it's like just stepping right into it. So I just
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for sharing yourself, being so honest. I think you have a beautiful way of communicating, and what I think is even cooler is that I sense that the pressure that you put on yourself to represent your people may be even stronger than the pressure to win a gold medal. But guess what? You love pressure, so bring it on.
Oh my God,
Thank
that makes
you.
me so excited. Thank you.